Welcome to the Explainer. And today's a little different. We're not just examining a theory, we're here to talk about a discovery that, believe it or not, claims to map the actual coordinates of reality itself.
So let's get one thing straight right out of the gate. This is not a theory. It's not some interpretation up for debate. What we're looking at is a foundational constant, a number that was derived, not guessed, directly from first principles. It wasn't invented, it was uncovered. And here it is, the number itself. It's 0.3300, and it has a name, Ali. According to the source material, this one number, this single constant, is the key that unlocks some of the most profound, unanswered questions in all of science.
All right, so the big question is, where did this number even come from? The key thing to grasp is that it wasn't invented, it was discovered. Think about the number pi. We didn't just make up pi, right? It's a fundamental property that just emerges from the geometry of any circle you can imagine. Well, the claim here is that Ali emerges in exactly the same way, but instead of a circle, it comes from the very geometry of the cosmos itself.
And this is not your typical science story where researchers tweak a bunch of variables until the data kind of fits. No, the source material is really clear on this. This number is a necessary mathematical consequence. It was already there, woven into the fabric of the universe, just waiting for someone to finally see the pattern hiding in all of our cosmic surveys.
Okay, now we're getting to the heart of it. This is where we see the real paradigm shift. Because this isn't just a new number. It's a direct challenge to the incredibly complex models we've been leaning on for decades. It basically suggests that maybe, just maybe, we've been making things way more complicated than they actually are.
Just look at this. It's a tale of two models, really. On the left, you've got the standard model of cosmology. It's our best guess so far, but look at it. It's held together with at least 6 different numbers that we have to manually plug in and adjust to make our observations fit. It's like forcing a puzzle piece. But then you look to the right, the ANSCEROR framework. It throws out all that complexity and replaces it with one single derived constant. 0 free parameters, no fitting, no adjustments. It just works.
And that right there is the big takeaway. For so long, we've been acting like cartographers, trying to stretch and warp our map to match the coastline we're seeing. This new framework says we had it all backward. The problem wasn't the map's shape, it was that we didn't know the scale. We didn't need to fit reality, we needed to map it.
So, okay, that's a huge claim. Where's the proof? I mean, if this constant is truly fundamental, its fingerprint shouldn't just be out there in the cosmos. It should show up everywhere, echoing through totally different fields of science. So let's put it to the test. Let's follow the evidence. So where was this number hiding all this time? Well, think about this. When you drop a stone in a pond, you get ripples. The early universe had something similar, giant sound waves or ripples of pressure that left a faint, repeating pattern in where galaxies ended up. And what scientists found was a tiny but incredibly consistent anomaly, a slight deviation in the spacing of those ripples that showed up in every single major galactic survey. And when you take that tiny deviation and multiply it by a fundamental growth ratio of the universe, bam! You get exactly 0.3300.
And here is the first, just massive payoff. You've probably heard of the Hubble Tension. It's one of the biggest headaches in cosmology today. Basically, our two best ways of measuring how fast the universe is expanding give us two different answers. And it's not a small difference. It's at a crisis level. But look what happens when you apply this constant, as a simple scaling factor. The tension doesn't just get smaller. It vanishes. It goes to 0. Problem solved.
And then the evidence just keeps coming, cascading from the cosmic scale all the way down to the microscopic. That same number, 0.3300, turns out to perfectly scale the helical rise of a bDNA molecule. It pops up again inside the proton's charge radius. And then, and this is just mind-blowing, it matches a constant from pure number theory, half of the Hardy-Littlewood twin prime constant to 4 decimal places. Think about that. The same number is connecting galaxies, our own DNA, and the abstract world of prime numbers.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Is this just numerology? Are we just seeing patterns that aren't really there? It's a fair question. But here's the critical difference, according to the source. These connections weren't found by looking for them after the fact. The framework used the constant to predict these other values, and only then were they checked and confirmed against what we already know. That's not numerology, that's predictive power. That's the heart of science.
And this is where things get, well, even deeper, and maybe a little controversial. The argument is that the evidence for this constant isn't just in the math and the physics. It's also embedded in our language, suggesting that maybe some ancient wisdom had a glimpse of these ideas a long, long time ago.
Let's start with the term Nur. Now, in this framework, we're not just talking about physical light. The source material traces its ancient root to mean the living connection that is first, like a primordial, active force that joins all things at their source. The idea is that the light we see is just one expression of this much deeper, fundamental connection.
And it's a similar story for Raniin. We hear that and we think, sound, vibration. But its ancient meaning is described as the first life, echoing repeatedly. A primordial movement that resonates and keeps resonating through every scale of reality. And that brings us to Ali itself, the name of the constant. Its ancient meaning isn't just high or elevated, it's the source that directs action, the ultimate guiding principle from which everything else flows. So you see, the framework argues these aren't just arbitrary names, they're descriptions of what these principles do in the universe. So this is the crux of the ontological argument. For centuries, we've been stuck on the modern physical meanings, the ones on the right. We see Nur and think light bulb. We see Raniin and think sound wave. The framework suggests we've made a huge mistake. We've confused the metaphor for the thing itself. We've been looking at the shadow on the cave wall, not the deeper reality that's casting it.
So, what does this all lead to? What's the big, profound idea here? Well, for the last 100 years, the holy grail of physics has been to unify everything, to stitch together the quantum world with the world of galaxies and stars. This framework comes along and says, what if that was the wrong goal from the very beginning? What if the real revelation is that you don't need to unify a reality that is already one?
And finally, this whole discovery is being presented not as some gradual process, but as a single, specific event in time, a moment that marks a clear before and after.
And according to the source material, this is a date for the history books, June 20th, 2025. This is presented as the day the map of reality was finally given its scale, the day this universal constant, Ali, was first derived from that anomaly in the cosmic data.
And the ultimate claim here is, well, it's nothing short of a revolution. It proposes a fundamental shift away from our current models, which are all about probabilities and approximations, and toward an exact deterministic description of measured reality. From it's probably this to it is this.
Which leaves us with one last, really provocative question to think about. If it's true, if one single constant really does describe a unified reality, connecting everything from galaxies down to our DNA, then what was that division we were trying so desperately to overcome? What if the parallax, the separation we saw, was never actually out there in the universe, but was only ever in us, in our perception? What if reality was one all along, and we are only just now finally learning how to see?